Hi everyone, this is Dr. Chhoda and welcome to this episode of Ignition Time. I want to welcome my beloved community to a brand new week, hopefully a week that is likely to bring us good news. Thank you so much for being a viewer and subscriber. My name is Dr. Chhoda with Ignition Time, and I want you to know that you are greatly appreciated. Again, my name is Dr. Chhoda with Ignition Time. If you don't know anything about me, check out my video. You'll learn more about who I am, what my journey has been like, and why you should listen to me. This channel, the Ignition Time channel, is about the country, it's about the economy, and it's about your money. We have not yet seen, at the time I'm recording this video, we have not yet seen the bill, the actual piece of legislation of the new stimulus bill. And believe it or not, they're having some printer delays. Yep, they're having some printer delays. The Congress of the United States of America is having some printer delays. I'll be giving you that information shortly. But first, let's take a look at what Senator Pat Toomey, the Republican from Pennsylvania, said in an interview today. Because remember, Pat Toomey was the one who wanted to limit some of the Federal Reserve lending provisions. And I think it's very interesting to take a look at this segment. Then we'll take a look at a segment from the US Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin, who said that money could reach, the stimulus check money could start reaching individuals as early as next week. So some encouraging signs there. But I think it's really interesting to see what Pat Toomey had to say in his segment today on CNBC. Now, in the first segment, Pat Toomey talks about the Federal Reserve lending capabilities, and he says, in his own words, the Fed facilities were meant to stabilize markets. They were meant to stabilize markets, and he said Democrats wanted these programs to be extended indefinitely, which essentially was the holdup at the very last minute. Very interesting, again, to understand the philosophical and the ideological differences between the two sides. Let's roll the tape and see what Pat Toomey had to say about this today.
One thing that doesn't seem to be helping the markets too much this morning is that $900 billion relief deal that Congress agreed to last night. One of the major sticking points over the weekend was Republican Senator Pat Toomey's push to prevent the Fed from reviving the emergency lending programs that were set up under the CARES Act earlier this year. But that issue has now been resolved, at least we think. Joining us right now to explain is Senator Toomey himself. And Senator, you sure know how to grab attention and headlines over the weekend. What happened? Is this a situation where you don't trust the chairman, Jay Powell? What happened?
No, that's nothing of the sort. And there were no surprises here. A little bit of background. First of all, these facilities were always intended to be temporary. In fact, when we were writing the bill, and I was one of the two Republican senators writing it back in March, I wanted a September 30th deadline because these facilities, let's keep in mind, their purpose was to restore normal functioning in the private capital and lending markets, not to replace those markets, not to be an all-purpose source for fiscal policy, but to stabilize markets. Because remember, back in March, there was a real concern that the capital markets were going to freeze up completely, and that could be, of course, catastrophic. We put a December 30th, December 31st deadline, and then a legal interpretation came along that suggested, well, maybe that deadline doesn't really apply to these facilities after all because of the way it was drafted. And Democrats started to increasingly call on the extension of these programs indefinitely. Senator Schumer sent a letter to Secretary Mnuchin and Powell to do that. The House passed a bill commanding the Fed to use the municipal lending facility to do 10-year, 25 basis point loans to any municipality without even having to attest that they couldn't get credit elsewhere. So really, literally turning the Fed into the lender of first resort. So my concern was there would be tremendous political pressure to misuse these, to morph these liquidity facilities that had successfully restored market liquidity and turn them into an instrument of fiscal policy, which is a terrible idea. And so I began back in the summer a series of measures. We had legislation in September that we voted on that would shut these down, strip the money out, and preclude their restarting. And some of the final details we haggled over the weekend. And there was the Democrats thought that they could try to make a sort of sensation out of it, but it was a flash in the pan. We got to an agreement. And the good news is these programs will be the temporary facilities they were intended to be.
Now, in the next segment, Toomey was asked about essentially the mechanics of what he was suggesting, and he said that the Federal Reserve had been given unprecedented, extraordinary powers only to be used in a real emergency. His words, and he said, essentially, this was my interpretation, that we are not in an emergency anymore. Let me know if you agree with Pat Toomey. Are we not in the real emergency anymore? What about our fellow Americans who are finding it hard to put food on the table because they lost their jobs through no fault of their own? What about our fellow Americans in travel, leisure, entertainment, and hospitality? What about the close to 20 million, potentially higher number of our fellow Americans who are on unemployment right now? What about all of the individuals who are struggling right now? Because while these senators talk about the Federal Reserve lending capabilities, liability protection, aid for state and local governments, they talk about the Paycheck Protection Program. For us, it's about putting food on the table. It's about keeping the lights on. It's about trying to simply make rent. Let's take a look at this segment with Pat Toomey, where he talks about the Federal Reserve having been given unprecedented, extraordinary powers only to be used in what he called a real emergency. Let's watch.
All right, a couple of questions. First of all, would you not support reopening facilities like this? Because it seems to me like the language does allow for opening similar programs, just not exactly the same, some of these things. Is it your contention that the Fed should have to come before Congress again before being able to open anything similar?
So, great question. So what I think is really unique and important about shutting these down is the unprecedented nature, right? Direct corporate lending by the Fed by virtue of direct primary market bond purchases. Direct lending by the Fed to middle market companies where the Fed would dictate the terms and decide who would qualify and for under what circumstances. Direct lending to municipalities. This is an explicit allocation of credit. These are unprecedented, extraordinary powers, and they're only justifiable in a real emergency. And so the Fed recognized that. They came to Congress back in March and said, this is what we'd like to do. Will you fund it? And then they set them up. And I voted for that, and I supported that because I thought we were in such an emergency. We are clearly not in a financial crisis at this point. We haven't been for months. And so if we get back to a terrible circumstance next year or 10 years from now, and the Fed and the Treasury come together and say, hey, this is the kind of facility we need, I would support that under the right circumstances. But it shouldn't be sort of a permanent vehicle that's there for a certain, some politicians to decide, let's take this over and start doing subsidized loans.
And in the third segment, Toomey said something that is factually correct. He says some states are doing very well despite the pandemic. There are states that are actually making more money and raising their budgets despite what has happened in this horrific pandemic. I have done another video where I've talked about some states doing significantly better than other states. So I definitely suggest you check that out. Let's roll the tape and see what Toomey had to say about this.
What about your thoughts just on state and local municipal aid? Obviously, that was a huge sticking point. There's not going to be that state or local aid in the $900 billion bill that it sounds like congressional leadership has approved. Are you opposed to, I recognize some of your concerns in the past on this have been that states would use it to bail out the problems that they've developed over a long period of time, things like with the retirement plans that they've promised their state workers. Are you opposed to any state or municipality, though, getting money for a revenue shortfall, maybe through no fault of their own, just the storm that is COVID? I look at the money that was caused by COVID, the shortfall versus states' own problems that they've had for long periods of time before this.
Well, Becky, I think we have to put it in the context of what we've already done. I mean, the CARES Act back in March sent something on the order of just about $500 billion to states and municipalities. And we're sending more in this bill, not as a blank check for states to allocate as they see fit, but picking up the tab for all kind of state expenses. We're still paying much more than the historic federal share for Medicaid. So there's been an enormous amount of money has gone out to the states. And look, it turns out there are states that are in a great place, right? Their revenue has been excellent, and in fact, exceeding expectations, in some cases running ahead of last year. And then in other cases, take the case of New Jersey. Hit very hard by COVID, had a very, very, costly shutdown of their economy for an extended period. And then they pass a budget where they increase government spending by 4%. I guess they're not that worried about, where this is going to come from. I'd also point out that states have taxing authority, too. And it's not obvious to me why this ought to happen at the federal level at yet another round after we've already done hundreds of billions of dollars for states and municipalities. I think given the disparity in how different states spend money and how they tax their citizens, it's probably at this point, and given all the money we've already paid for, probably better not to have yet another round of direct payments to states and municipalities.
Now, in other news, the U.S. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin was interviewed today on CNBC, and he said that the money, the stimulus check money, could start going out to individuals as early as next week. Now, keep in mind, the bill still has to pass the House and the Senate. It has to be signed into law by the president, and the president has indicated that he would sign this promptly through his spokesperson. But this is an important comment from the U.S. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin. This gives us a sense of how quickly the money will reach us. He said people are going to see stimulus money the beginning of next week. And that would be welcome news for a lot of our fellow Americans. Let's roll the tape and see what Steven Mnuchin had to say this morning on CNBC.
Earlier on our air, Senator Toomey said, wait a second, on the 600, that there are 93% of the people are employed in this country, and a lot of those people are going to get $600, and whether that's fair or whether it should go to people only who don't have jobs.
Well, I think, as you know, the good news is this is a very, very fast way of getting money into the economy. And again, let me emphasize that people are going to see this money the beginning of next week. So it's very fast. It's money that gets recirculated in the economy. So people go out and spend this money, and that helps small business, and that helps getting more people back to work. Now, you're right. The good news is unemployment has come way down. So I think, as you know, we were worried about, something like a Great Depression again earlier in the year. But this is now much more targeted. I expect it's needed in a short period of time. And I think this will take us through the recovery. And let me just say, I'm going to push back. I heard your comments on vaccine distribution. I think the Department of Defense and HHS has a fabulous plan. This Project Warp Speed that the president invested literally billions and billions of dollars in early on has really paid off. And there's no difference that there's just a huge difference of where we are now versus where we were earlier in the year.
All right, so and I understand that, and I think Warp Speed has done amazing things. I'm on record saying that. How do the people in the small businesses actually get this money? Is it the same system as last time? And what do you do about the ones that didn't make it? Secretary Mnuchin, a lot of them just didn't make it to now.
Well, you're right. That is unfortunate, and we've said our job is not done until we get everybody back to work, and that's what this is about. It is a similar distribution as last time for the PPP. There'll be some additional programs also set up that are targeted. Let me just say, in the PPP, if businesses are down 25%, they'll be able to get a second check. We also added employer retention tax credits. Up to $10,000 per quarter per person. This is a very, very big incentive for small business as well. And I expect this is going to have a much-needed big impact. And in the PPP, also additional money, particularly for hotel and food services that have been hard hit.
And so here's where things stand right now. Believe it or not, this is the United States government at work. You'll see this tweet on your screen from Jake Sherman over at Politico. It's worse than printer delays. They cannot get the COVID bill, the stimulus bill, and the government funding package. The government of the United States of America cannot get a package which is worth trillions of dollars, which is worth $2.4 trillion. They cannot get it uploaded to the internet because the computers keep bugging out, according to several sources. Apparently, there's a corrupt file in the education piece of the bill, and all of the sections need to be combined into one file. So yes, I am reporting to you a corrupt file that is preventing the upload of a $2.4 trillion package, which is greater than the GDP of many countries on planet Earth. Our United States government is unable to get it uploaded to the internet. I'm pretty sure someone working on the bill needs a lesson in Adobe Acrobat. And more information coming in, everybody. This is from Jeff Stein from the Washington Post. I know there have been a lot of questions about retroactive benefits, about PEUC, about PUA, and you'll get this information. Again, full credit to Jeff Stein from the Washington Post. We'll provide you with all these tweets in the description section below, so you can definitely check them out for yourself. And per the summaries that are circulating today, PEUC, the Pandemic Emergency Unemployment Compensation Program, has been extended through the 14th of March. Individuals who are receiving benefits, who continue to receive benefits as of the 14th of March, will continue to get benefits through the 5th of April as long as the individual has not reached the maximum number of weeks. So that's important information for those of us who are dependent on PEUC right now. And here's a tweet on your screen from Josh Hawley, the Republican senator from Missouri. Now, this is a little bit alarming, but again, let's wait till we see the final text of the bill. What Josh Hawley is saying is that the negotiators are saying they could only find money for $600 per person stimulus checks for working people. But mark my words, there will be hundreds of billions of dollars spent on special interests, banks, and the government. Guys, don't panic yet. Let's wait until the final text of the bill is being released. I am reading this just as you're reading it. Josh Hawley, the Republican senator from Missouri, is implying that stimulus checks will only go out to working people. Let's wait and see until the final text of the bill is going to be released at some point today. And speaking of the bill, everybody, here's also reporting from Jake Sherman over at Politico that suggests that essentially the bill has been drafted. They have put down the pens and now they are assembling the entire thing into a bill. So basically all the different provisions have been drafted. Now the whole thing is going to be put into one big comprehensive bill. So where things stand right now is that they have one big comprehensive bill that they are essentially putting together as we speak. And as you can clearly see, they are having some difficulty uploading this to the internet in one bill so that the public can start reviewing it, so that reporters can start reviewing it and seeing what is actually included. And finally, on your screen, you'll see a tweet again from Jake Sherman over at Politico. He's responding to what Senator John Cornyn from Texas said, and this is a statement from Senator John Cornyn from Texas. He said, "True, Pelosi and Schumer have agreed to a $900 billion bill 3 months after turning down a $1.8 trillion offer from US Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin." Now, I have said this before on my channel that we will never ever know if the Republicans would have passed this in the Senate. All indications are that they would not have, because they said so. And Jake Sherman from Politico is essentially pointing that out. Jake is essentially saying that there's been a lot of chatter about this. Republicans were saying at that time, which by the way seems like a lifetime away, that they could not sell anything over $1 trillion, and the White House firmly believed that. Now, the question is, if the White House believed that, then why is it that the White House was even proposing $1.9 trillion to begin with? These are questions that will always remain unanswered, but this is where we stand right now. That's it, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Dr. Nitin Chhoda with Ignition Time. I really appreciate you watching. If you don't know anything about me, please check out my video. You'll learn more about who I am, what my journey has been like, and why you should listen to me. We release videos at 2 p.m. East Coast time most days of the week. That's 2 p.m. East Coast time most days of the week. So please make sure you click like, you subscribe, you enable notifications. I would really appreciate that. Ignite the subscribe button, ignite that notification button, because the name of our channel is Ignition Time. I would really appreciate it if you take the time to do that. Now, keep in mind, the Ignition Time channel is about important matters pertaining to the country, important matters that in turn affect the economy, and by extension, matters that affect your money. We focus on the country, the economy, and the money. For me, it's not important whether you're pro-Trump or anti-Trump, you're pro-Biden or anti-Biden. For me, it's not about the red or the blue, it's about the red, white, and blue. We are not Democrats, we are not Republicans, we are Americans first, and that is the philosophy of our channel. I want you to know that you're greatly appreciated. If you want to get on our SMS alerts list, you can do so. You'll get breaking news and alerts. You'll get important information that will help you make more money, save more money, and invest money successfully. We'll notify you if we ever release any coaching programs. And if you want, you can opt out of the SMSs at any point in time that you want. To get on our SMS list, simply get your cell phone out, send a text message with the word ignition or the word time, either ignition or time, because the name of our channel is Ignition Time, and send that text message to 70,000. That's 70000. You'll get added to our SMS alerts list going forward. Now, if you want, you can also get added to our email list. Our email list, to get added to our email list, simply go to ignitiontime.com/alerts. That's ignitiontime.com/alerts. And at any point in time, you can opt out of the emails pretty much anytime you want. So no worries about that. Now, you can also follow us on Instagram. We release exclusive news and content specifically for our Instagram community. Simply follow us at ignition_time. That is our Instagram handle. So follow us on Instagram. Also, you can follow us on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is also ignition_time, so make sure to follow us on Twitter. One of the things that I am personally very proud of is our community. Our community is very intelligent, it's bipartisan, it's respectful. We engage in healthy, respectful debates. So please feel free to comment below and engage in a healthy, respectful, fun debate with other members of our community. You might even make some new friends. We'll always include the link to all of our resources in the description section below. Again, you'll always find that so you can dig deeper into any of the content. Finally, please click like. Please subscribe, please enable notifications. That really, really, really helps out the YouTube algorithm, and that is your vote of confidence in us for all the effort that goes into these videos, all the effort that we put into the creation of the content, the professional video production quality, and the release of these videos in a consistent manner to give you the latest news, to give you news you can depend on. My philosophy is to share the truth with you wherever it might lead us. And also, all I ask is you please share this video with 2 friends, just 2 friends or family members. In fact, just click the share button below and share this video with 2 friends or family members. That would mean a lot to us. Thank you so much for watching. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next episode of Ignition Time. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.